All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Gonna be touching on the top prop bets today on both PrizePicks and Underdog, talking about all the sports that we have, mostly college basketball and NBA. Let's go ahead and get into it. So right now, as it sits, we are getting a decent amount of college basketball props. I'm hoping that we get more throughout the day as well. I do think that this is going to be a good starting point, but I also want to point out that right now, we are not getting any college basketball fantasy score prop bets on Underdog, okay? And hopefully, as you guys know, this has been a huge edge. This is the reason why we're up 90 plus units now after yesterday's bet of the day hitting, and really after a lot of those golf props middling yesterday, which is pretty awesome. That the golf prop bets were not on the bet of the day just because I figured they would get bumped. Most of them did. But yes, one of the biggest advantages that we've had is being able to compare the Underdog fantasy score lines to the PrizePicks lines. So we don't have that just yet. I am kind of on a time constraint today, so I had to come out with this video a little bit earlier, a little bit before this, but Underdog has been doing this where they release the college basketball props only like an hour before the first game's lock. So I figured PrizePicks has the college basketball props out there. Let's just get this coverage out to you guys. So let's go ahead and take a peek at which prop bets are going to be the best college basketball prop bets right now on PrizePicks. And so right now, it's actually a tighter slate. We only have two prop bets that would be worthwhile. That's going to be PGA Hall for under his fantasy score. You can run out McKnight for under 5.5 assists as well. We can see the average sportsbook line likes that one as well. I'd be fine with that, okay? But we got Ryan Clockbrenner for under 36.5 as well. Now, the only issue that I have with this one is that the data really is telling us, or the projection data really likes him. So both of those two, PJ Hall and Ryan Clockbrenner, I do hesitate a little bit. It's not like a perfect slate. So that's where, and if we look at all the other fantasy score prop bets as well, that's where I do really want to see what Underdog's lines are before I place really any college basketball props, just to be able to compare it against. Now, it does seem like the projection data is a little bit more aggressive today than most days. I'm not exactly sure why, but I do think that's worth calling out. And again, like the projection data doesn't really go into the edge. What we're comparing is what the average sportsbook line is saying the fantasy score is going to be, and also looking at the percent of that, and then we're comparing it against the PrizePicks or Underdog line. So again, I do want to see what that line is for Underdog. Now, here's a couple that I don't mind. Really just RJ Davis for over his fantasy score, and then Young as well, because, well, there is some continuity between the two fantasy score lines that we are getting. So the average sportsbook line for RJ Davis would be saying that the PrizePicks line is too low, and then the projection data would also be saying that. Same thing for Jameer Young, just the opposite way. At 35.5, the projection data is saying 32 fantasy points, and then the average sportsbook line is saying 32.8. So we can see there is a slight edge there. Those are the two I like the most, even though that the edge is telling us these are the two best. And that's simply because the projection data, although, again, I would trust the average sportsbook line more, I do want that continuity between the two lines. And guys, I do want to jump into some golf as well. We are getting one big prop line difference again. Hideki, 4 birdies or better. Probably should be at 5. We just see that. But really, I expect this course to play more difficult today. Just given the weather situations and whatnot, I feel like we got some better pin placements. Golfers were able to play a little bit more aggressively than normal. And so I kind of think on Saturday, today, it's weird, guys. The golfers, there's just weather delays and whatnot. A lot of the golfers are actually finishing up their round 2s today just because of the weather delays and whatnot. Obviously, there's less time in the day. There's fog yesterday, whatever. So round 2 is actually going to start probably at like 2 p.m. or so Eastern Standard Time. So we don't know that information, where the pins are going to be. So this is just guessing. They're guessing, but just quite clearly we can see Hideki is a decent edge. I'm perfectly fine using that on Underdog. Bet the under. I think that's a better bet. So does the data, just as an FYI there. And then I think we can also bet the over on PrizePicks. And then we go ahead and take a peek at NBA today. We are getting a lot of weird situations today. So OKC, they just traded for Gordon Hayward. Their lineup's not going to change. We can kind of guess what they're going to do. You got Chet Holmgren going against Dallas. I kind of joked that Gafford being traded to Dallas means that centers against Dallas are still a thing, maybe even more so of a thing now. Daniel Gafford maybe starts. Derek Lively is going to be out, but they got better. Dallas certainly got better. You expect Luka to still be the same Luka, but also Kyrie. But at the same time, I thought PGA Washington was being underused in Charlotte. He was someone that I was recommending DFS-wise, NBA DFS-wise, for like the past week while Terry Rozier was traded and LaMelo Ball was out. He had been playing well, so good for him that he got traded. I kind of want to take the wait-and-see approach there for Dallas. Looking at Detroit as well, Cade Cunningham is expected back today. Thompson's probably going to start, but they made some trades, right? Fontecchio's there, who is someone that we saw pop up a bunch on the fantasy score props. And if we look at the prop bets that we are getting for Detroit, I do think it's interesting, okay? It's going to be very difficult to give you guys per 36 production because they have pieces from different teams that are going to be on their roster now, like Fontecchio and then like some of the New York Knicks players. That being said, like Jaden Ivey is a player that should most times be able to go off. Now, this is a difficult matchup though, going against the Clippers. So that's my biggest hesitation. But the data does say with Bogdanovich off the court, he is the player that benefits almost the most. Cade Cunningham is going to be the most. And I would argue Cade Cunningham's is also pretty low as well. Now, he has had his minutes limited. And so that's where I do think Jaden Ivey, for over his points, rebounds, and assists, we are still getting a slight edge. He should still get some minutes, even if the game blows out. And then Jalen Duren has been playing well as well. A lot of people are liking the over rebounds. I would argue might as well just go over PRA because he has been going off. He is a player that I do think will continue to do this. Now, I do want to call out that against the Clippers last time out, only 26. And you can see, like, took advantage of Portland. That's a good matchup. The Kings, they were pretty short against them, so it makes sense why he went off. And then these other matchups where you wouldn't think he would do well, he didn't. Now, Isaiah Stewart's going to be out today again. He should be able to have a good game. Now, when we look at the projection data, it does like the rebounds much better. A lot of people have bet that, and I bet this is going to be a prop bet that gets bumped to 12. They just added in Goblins. But like, this is my biggest deal with PrizePicks is that this will probably get bumped to 12. And they're still going to have it listed as a flame, as a popular bet. And I just think that's so misleading. Now, I will say this is probably a better bet, the rebounds and assists, because guess what? The data is saying that. So let's just roll with that one. But again, like, it is weird. I would argue that the points, rebounds, and assists is a better one, but that's going to be a better bet on the sportsbook. Looking at Jaden Ivey, the data does agree for over his PRA as well, even though it's very thin. And then Cade Cunningham, if he does get his normal minutes, he should be able to get there pretty easily. But that's the bet. He's been someone that has had his minutes limited. That would be the bet, is betting on his minutes, or for him to get a full allotment of minutes. From there, the Spurs, they did a little bit of moves, not too much. Brooklyn, they obviously got rid of, or well, Dinwiddie's not there. They got kind of better. Jalen Wilson has been playing pretty darn well for them. Dennis Schroeder is going to be there as well. Like, what does that mean? Is he going to play a lot? How does that affect Cam Thomas? I do think Brooklyn got better. I do think Nick Claxton has a great matchup going against Brooklyn. But in terms of these other ancillary players, I shouldn't even say that. That's not fair. But in terms of other players other than Nick Claxton, I can't tell you guys they're a good play with any confidence. I will say with Cam Johnson out and with De'Ron Sharp out, Nick Claxton should be able to have a good game. And so another one that I like is going to be rebounds and assists here. But he is someone that I could see waiting to see what the fantasy score lines are, because he is someone that should have a good game today. Now, maybe Ben Simmons does operate a little bit at the 5 today. I don't know. We see Ben Simmons do some weird stuff. Maybe Finney-Smith operates a little bit as the 5 as well. But for the most part, again, I think this is a little bit too low for his PRA. But given that line that we're getting for his PRA, I think we're going to get a pretty good fantasy score line. So I'm assuming that's going to be at about 28. Maybe even 29, I'd be fine betting the over still, because again, going against the Spurs, that's a very soft matchup. And then from there, Orlando, they're pretty much good to go. We don't really want to chase anyone for the Bulls going against Orlando. That's a difficult matchup. Looking at Philly, they are banged up still, and they traded Pat Bev to the Bucks. Cam Payne had a pretty good game last night. So did Kelly Oubre. If Maxey and Batum are still out, this is a smash spot against Washington. And so the reason we're only getting Maxey props is because it's kind of like we already know Embiid's out, but if Maxey were to be active, these are what his lines would be. You also have Buddy Hield there that was forced into 40 minutes in his first game for the Sixers. You know, he really had himself a good game. He is very much shot dependent. 21 shot attempts on his first game, 4 for 12 from 3. I mean, really was just terrible, but he was kind of forced into that role. Kelly Oubre is someone that I thought would get a higher bump in his usage, and that's exactly what happened. So if we get the same injury report as yesterday, where both Melton and Maxey are out, I expect Kelly Oubre to be the guy that actually gets the biggest bump in usage like he did yesterday. And that's something I fully expect to happen. And it's just a great matchup against Washington. We don't have to worry about a blowout really at all. So like I really want to get some lines on Kelly Oubre, because again, he's going to get the biggest bump in usage, and usage is the biggest predictor in terms of who's going to have a good game. more times than not. Then on the other side of this game, Washington did something kind of interesting yesterday, and that's because, and I'll talk about this in a second, they were short their centers. So it's everyone in the DFS, NBA DFS community thought Eugene was going to be the one that would start and play a lot of minutes. He did not. Okay, only 13 minutes in that game. And so we got to see if Raquan Holmes is going to be active in this game. He is a strong point per minute producer, much more of a DFS only type play, but you can see by the pricing, DraftKings is preparing for that. So I'd be very interested to see what his lines are, but you got Marvin Bagley out as well in the last game. I'm very interested to see if he plays, because this is a very good matchup for one of those two bigs. But if they both sit, then I think we're just looking at Kyle Kuzma, who played 37 minutes, played a little bit at the 5, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I'm just assuming based off of the lineups that I saw out there. But, you know, it's the NBA. There's a little bit of positionless basketball and whatnot. So, but it seemed like Kispert, Denny, Kyle Kuzma, Jordan Poole, and Tyus Jones. That was the lineup that they ran out the most. So I'm just assuming Kyle Kuzma played the 5. I could look that up, but I think it's a safe assumption. Anyways, he played a lot of minutes. Okay, he's going to be playing against one of the Philly bigs. Should be a good matchup for him regardless. The concern that I have for him is only 14 shot attempts, 37 minutes, only 14 shot attempts. But again, against Philly, against Paul Reed, this is going to be a good matchup. I do expect him to have a good game. And then Bilal did start, and he played his best game of the season. So that's interesting. Jordan Poole had a decent game as well. Like, I do think slight stacking opportunity in that game, but when we look at the props that we're getting, like Denny, I'm okay with that. I don't feel the need to really target him at all today in terms of his unders. Just the props that we are getting right now, I just kind of don't need to bet on them. But I do think, you know, just kind of looking at the injury report, Kyle Kuzma is going to be the one that benefits the most if those two bigs sit. Looking at the next game, again, there's a lot of injuries news, guys. I apologize. That's just the video today. Memphis, they're very banged up, but some of the best prop bets that we have on the board today are actually looking at Memphis, like John Contra for over rebounds and assists at 8.5. He's someone that should be thrust into a lot of minutes. You look at Jaren Jackson Jr., they like the over points. I don't know if I exactly trust that there, but it is a good matchup going against Charlotte. He should be able to go off. They are so banged up right now. And they obviously traded PGA Washington. They took away another scorer. So this game is ugly. It's supposed to be very close, 3.5. So this is a game where we want to try to find some prop bets. And if you look at it, like, he is the one player that has been getting consistent minutes. Now, it's kind of ugly to trust him. Don't get me wrong. I get that, especially with Luke Kennard probably back today, or he is back. He's someone that should get more minutes. He's going to get some shots up. You look at Vince Williams Jr. He's someone that they're trying to develop. He's been getting heavy minutes as well. He's been playing really well. You guys know that by now, I think. You know, I've been hyping him up a little bit here and there. Scottie Pippen Jr. is getting a little bit more run. He's been consistent. So looking at it, like, I don't know if we need to go with those two, like John Contra or Jaren Jackson Jr. I'm more interested in those other players, like Vince Williams Jr. You see his points at 14.5. I would argue that's a little bit too low. And again, it's weird. Like, I would want to bet over PRA, but the data is telling us, no, that's probably not the best move. So again, probably going to wait to see what his fantasy score is. If it's close to this, like 28, I'd be fine betting the over. Looking at Charlotte, they are obviously banged up. They obviously made some trades as well. Kyle Lowry, game time decision, could play. I'm actually interested. What does that mean? Is he going to get some run in this game? But they're so banged up. It is going to be a good match for Brandon Miller, for Miles Bridges, for Nick Richards as well. I shouldn't say that. Just Jaren Jackson Jr. hasn't been as good as he has been in the past. And so looking at it, Nick Richards is going to get a lot of minutes in this game, especially with PJ Washington out. I would argue that this is another one where I would much rather bet the over, just given the fact that PJ Washington is out, because they're already going to be without Mark Williams in this game. And so just my natural thought is that Nick Richards should get 36 plus minutes in this game. Okay, he's already getting 30 minutes, but you take PJ Washington out, that makes, who are they going to run at the 5? Is it going to be Miles Bridges? It could be. Is it going to be JT Thorpe? Probably not. Like, maybe Bertans, like maybe Grant Williams, who Dallas was more than happy to get. But that's the nature of the beast today. We're trying to prepare for some of these unknowns. And so until we get that confirmation, like if those players are out that were just traded for, then yeah, Nick Richards here is going to be in a good spot. But again, it's kind of speculation. Let's continue on. It's a tough slate to break down. It just is. For Atlanta, DeJounte Murray was out last night again, which meant Bay, Jalen Johnson, and Nika had a good game, but Clint Capella is going to be out. And Nika still probably going to have a good game against Houston. Don't feel the need to touch on that too much. Amon Thompson had a terrible game last night. Maybe has a better game with Cam Whitmore potentially out and Fred VanVleet out. He's going to get the minutes, so I don't think he's someone that is a terrible one. Looking at Indy, I don't feel the need to really target this game right now with Halliburton, a game time decision. But looking at New York, yeah, we don't know what's going to happen there as well. Again, that's going to be pure speculation as to what happens. But Mitchell Robinson being out, Julius Randle, Hartenstein, OG all out. Precious is going to have to get a ton of minutes, as is Jericho Sims. And so again, it's super difficult to visualize the per 36 production with certain players, but like he's going to get heavy minutes. I mean, he's been playing 40 plus minutes out of the necessity over the past few games. Precious has been, and it's not the best matchup going against Indy, but he's going to continue to get that run. You can see the rebounds there. He is someone that I do think we're going to be looking at rebound wise today. I do want to call it that Dante DiVincenzo, he seems to be good to go, but Bogdanovich, game time decision, he is someone that is going to soak up some usage. He is someone that could play 30 plus minutes. I don't know if that hurts Josh Hart or DiVincenzo, but DiVincenzo, Josh Hart have been playing extremely well. The three balls that DiVincenzo's been shooting is just crazy for what it's worth, but we're not getting any prop bets because Jalen Brunson currently a game time decision. If he sits, DiVincenzo is going to be the number one priority. He should be, I mean, his fantasy score should probably be at 40 if Jalen Brunson is out. We'll see what that line comes out to be, but Bogdanovich, if he's active, would be someone that I think would do better as well. But again, it's super difficult to prepare for that because we just don't know. Josh Hart would start. These two teams, we have a good indication of what's going to happen. Mobley's going to be in for a good game against Toronto. And again, I don't think the lines have corrected enough for how well Evan Mobley's playing in limited minutes. Like, he's going to give us 25 minutes or so. And you look at the difference. I know Jared Allen's playing more minutes, but like I think this should be a little bit closer. This should probably be 27.5 for Jared Allen for his PRA. And then Evan Mobley should probably be 24.5. And that's kind of predicated on two things. One, Evan Mobley's been playing extremely well lately, but it's also given the matchup that he has. Like, again, if he's going to give us, let's say 25 to 28 minutes, he's a point per minute producer, especially in these games, matchups that are going to be easier. Like the Spurs, good matchup. Washington, good matchup. The Kings, not exactly good matchup, but he crushed there. And then Brooklyn, not exactly good matchup, but he crushed there as well. So like, I do like the idea of still going with Jared Allen while he's being currently undervalued, Evan Mobley while he's currently being undervalued. And Jared Allen just isn't getting as much minutes as well. Like, it's only 4 more minutes here and there. Like, sure, don't get me wrong, like it makes sense why Jared Allen's higher, but given how well Mobley's been playing, I just kind of want to ride the hot hand there. And again, I do think his line is still a little bit too low. Now, looking at Toronto, I do think that they've been super undervalued across the industry lately, but it's a tough matchup against Cleveland. I don't really want to target any of their prop bets today. For Portland, we got a lot of injury news, obviously, here. Simons is going to be out. Sharp is going to be out, though. So if those two players are out and then Brogdon and Scoot Henderson are active, those two players are going to have a huge usage rate, okay? If one of those two players are out, Jeremy Grant is going to have a huge usage rate as well. Look at the spread, though. 7.5. That tells me that this is probably going to be the starting lineup. And so we're not getting any prop bets for Portland, but be on the lookout for that, guys, because if Brogdon gets 36 plus minutes, if Scoot Henderson gets 36 plus minutes, for Scoot, it's going to be very difficult for them to project him extremely high. But he's been getting shot attempts up. Like, his over points, if it's at probably 23, I'd be fine betting the over there, just as an FYI. Just because, again, it's going to be hard for the data to really say more than that, but his usage rate would tell us that with Simons and Sharp off the court. He's just been shooting the basketball a bunch. And so, wow. All right, this video went long enough that we are getting some fantasy score prop bets for college basketball. We're not getting any for NBA just yet for either site, just as an FYI. But let's go ahead and give you guys another look at college basketball, and that'll give you guys a bet of the day. All right, so far on the day, no massive prop line differences between PrizePicks and Underdog for college basketball in terms of like Underdog undervaluing compared to PrizePicks. Now, if we flip it around, we are going to see some slight edges here. Okay, so again, like there should never be this big of a difference. So we can see on Underdog, this is a pretty massive edge for Kyle to get under his fantasy score. But when it's a 4 for a prop line difference, I'm fine betting the middle like there. We saw, I don't want to exactly use this example with Brandon Carlson, but Brandon Carlson in regulation just 2 nights ago, that was like a clear good bet on PrizePicks, but it was a good middling opportunity on Underdog. He got the middle in regulation. Now that game went to OT, so he ended up crushing his over. And so the under on Underdog did not hit. But I feel like that's a good example. Like in regulation, obviously that's what you're preparing for. It's very rare for a game to go into OT. This is a good example of that. Like, this is a pretty good edge that we're getting. But we can specifically see on Underdog, this is a very good under bet. We're seeing another one here where this one we can see definitely should be more of a middling opportunity. Now we can see PrizePicks probably a little bit lower than the average line. So I'd be fine betting the over there on PrizePicks. And then Ryan Kalkbrenner, this is a good reason why I wanted to wait to see where we're getting the bigger edge. This was already one that PrizePicks was telling us to bet the under on, but it's going to be a better bet on Underdog. Okay. And so again, though, looking at it from an underdog perspective now, I do just want to call out here that again, the projection data is telling us, don't be surprised if it goes for the over. That's the only concern with Ryan Kalkbrenner there. But the best bet that we have right now is Jaden Epps for under his fantasy score on Underdog. That one seems to be a pretty good edge that we are getting. This one's not as high as I would have liked, but you guys can see like on Underdog, one, they give us more fantasy score prop bets typically. And so there's typically a pretty big edge there. I mean, a lot of the under is being favorited there, especially for fantasy score. And that's typically the case. Like Underdog is just more aggressive with their lines, which has yielded some great success. And so getting into the bet of the day today, I typically like to run out a 5 slip insured slip on Underdog, but I just felt like the next prop bet that'd be included in there was not as good. Now I will say I'm perfectly happy just to run out this as a 2 slip bet. Like I think these two are going to be very strong prop bets, and if you wanted to, you could potentially do a little bit of a middling where you bet the over and under or on PrizePicks. I'd be fine with that, but we saw Jaden Epps is going to be the best bet that we have on the board today, and then Hideki for lower 5.5 birdies. Okay, this one is just a little bit too high. It should probably be at 5, where PrizePicks is a little bit too low, Underdog is a little bit too high, so I'm fine with that. Today does seem to be a little bit of a volume day, hopefully. I don't want to tell people to bet more, but like I'm probably going to do this where I'm betting those two together like I mentioned, and then this, you know, I'm going to do that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do these two, and then this one, you know, I'm just going to do that and then pair these two. Like that's how I'm going to go about operating today Underdog wise. But again, if you guys want to use the Underdog slip and you've never signed up for Underdog, use the promo code 9to5. That's going to kick back some money my way. That's really helped the channel out a lot, and I do appreciate that. So let's go ahead and get into the PrizePicks bet of the day. So again, this is kind of like yesterday where I gave you guys a 2 slip bet because those were just simply the 2 best prop bets that we had. It ended up hitting. Now it's Flex Friday, so I want to give you guys at least a flex slip bet, but again, I figured the golf props would get bumped throughout the day. They did, so it's just tough to prepare for that. So right now, these are the best prop bets I like, but it's only a 3 slip bet. And you guys know by now, I don't like to give those out. We're losing an edge there. I think this is a better bet on Underdog, but obviously we can't place these bets on Underdog, but the payout's better on Underdog for a 3 slip bet than it is on PrizePicks. Okay, you're only getting 5x here. Underdog, you get 6x. That's why I'm very hesitant to recommend a 3 slip bet, but these are the 3 best bets. If you guys like another prop bet and you guys want to attach that onto the slip to make it a 4 slip bet or 5 slip bet, whatever, or you don't like one of these, maybe you don't feel comfortable betting Hideki, doing the middling there, then you can just run out these two. Like that's fine, okay? But these are the ones I'm looking at today. That's gonna be all for today's video. Thanks for watching. If you guys want access to the tools, head on over to 9to5sports.com. It's gonna be available on the website for just $10 a month. Thanks for watching. Let's have a good slate, and as always, let's keep cashing.